Here we go.
All right. I'm ready.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Authentication for well, whatever. Ignoring. Okay, it doesn't matter. Whatever. Okay. What's up, guys? Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you.
Likewise.
Dude, we got a lot of science news this week, so it was actually kind of wild.
Yeah, definitely. Well, lots of news stories posted as usual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the first one that we had down that was that I'm honestly shocked at. I guess like that he fired the entire National Science, the National Science Board. So it's like the entire thing, just the whole swath of it, which is basically the like organizational body that oversees the framework. It says, the Wikipedia article says, the National Science National Science Board of the U.S. establishes the policies of the National Science Foundation, and within the framework of applicable national policies set forth by the President and Congress. The NSB also serves as an independent police advisory body to the President and Congress on science and engineering research and education issues. So it's just, and the next sentence is, the board had a statutory obligation to, quote, render to the President and to the Congress reports on specific individual policy matters related to science and engineering education in science and engineering as Congress or President determines the need for such reports. I guess he didn't really need any reports anymore because they weren't looking at it anyway. So they just fired all of them.
Yeah, so it's not a total dismantling of the National Science Foundation, but it's definitely a major step towards that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Check your DMs. Yeah, I think that I mean, just the description you read sounds like a governmental body that is vestigial to the Trump administration. Does the Trump administration need reports about state of affairs of science, or like how that interacts with government policy? No, they don't care. None of that sounds like, nothing that you said sounds of particular relevance to this administration. This administration allowed members of Doge, right, to come in and decide which grants should be fulfilled. I figured that this was in the NSF or the NIH, but probably it's both, I imagine. But there's that infamous scene that was described where a member of Doge, just like this dude in his effing 20s, who came in there and was just like practically on his phone while these serious like scholars and government officials around him, like, going through a list of already pitched grants by serious scientists and experimenters, and then he was just like, no, yes, whatever, like a Caesar going with his thumb going up and going down. But this guy, he had no idea. He wasn't paying attention. He didn't have any idea what was going on. He was simply given a motive, right? A command that costs should be reduced and DEI should be stopped, right? So it sounded DEI-ish to his probably weed-addled brain. Then it had to go. or whatever, or just however he felt about it. Maybe he didn't like the sounds, right? Maybe he was annoyed in that a moment in time. Maybe he was hungry, right? Like whatever, it doesn't matter. And so like you tell me there's a board that of individuals who are supposed to calmly and seriously examine, for instance, grants that go to um, uh, uh, like organizations that are pushing the frontiers of science within or technology within the United States, right? Who needs that? Who needs that, right? In fact, why can't you just replace them with AI? Right? Like literally. Like and this is not a joke. Like there was a one of those Doge boys. I'm not sure if it's the same one or not. But he was forced to give testimony within a deposition, right? That this happened like a month or two ago, where we saw this individual, and he was describing like why some things, basically what I was saying, some programs were attacked and destroyed, right, by Doge. It's like, yeah, well, I asked ChatGPT, is this thing a DEI? And ChatGPT told me yes, and so that's why I had to go. So when I say why can't you just have AI do, I actually mean that, like, why have the middleman, right? Like,
Yeah.
so of course it doesn't matter. So go ahead.
No, it's true, man. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, it's just like you're right. It's a vestigial organ to authoritarian. And that's it. Like this is just like a trying to knock down any type of pillars or anyone that would be a speed bump into the way of what Trump wants to do. And that's just sadly what it does. It's just they want to any independent thought process or independent body that would tell them what it is, because it's like the NSF is so small and neutered now anyway. It's like less than, what is it, less than 9 billion. Like it's nothing. It's like seriously nothing. So the idea that they're like coming for it, even still, like it really, how it is explained to me by like another scientist, was that it's really the way that science, like between presidents, kind of creates a political body that just kind of creates a institution of knowledge between one president to the other. Because like presidents are 4 and 8 years, but these are multi-decade experiments. So the idea is to try to create kind of like a regulatory body that's like bigger than it. It's kind of like the Fed. The Fed's like an independent idea than the government, so that they can't be swayed by politics. So in the same kind of way, but obviously Trump wants to sway it. So that's kind of where we're at.
I mean, this is this is the same department administration that's gutted the Department of Education too. Like again, like learned individuals are not welcome there, right? Even those who like, again, you know what? And another thing that just like kills me about this is that in like in conservative versions of intellectualism, right? What they'll tell you is that well, see, the problem with liberals, right? The problem with the left, right? The problem with universities, these Ivy Towers, is that they don't focus on things that have utility, right?
Yes.
You're gonna get a underwater basket weaving degree. That's their favorite. The made up nonsense, right? That's what
it's not made up. I
actually
completed that degree.
They'll tell you that this is, of course, unserious, unworth it, and that's why our graduates really aren't prepared for the job force, which is also why I have to, as a business owner, right? Like from their perspective, as a business owner, I have to bring in foreign workers who I can, pay less and exploit and, make sure they don't unionize, right? I have to do that because, the college students are prepared. They all have underwater basket weaving, right? And so the way to solve that, right, is to focus on STEM, right? On science and engineering, right? Like that. See, those are the real things. that deserve our money, right? Well, what about all these other things, English literature and all that, right? Nonsense, right? Okay, this program, National Science Board, right, is in charge of the NSF, National Science Foundation, which gives grants to organizations that are doing science and technology, right? Not even students doing it, like businesses and university institutions, right, organizations, labs, right, that are doing the science that could have actual like utility, right? Not even theoretical stuff, like actual stuff. Hey, this is a thing that we're planning on trying to design. We need funding, right? Assist us. This is the thing. This is the body that does that. I wonder where the conservatives are. I wonder where's the outrage from them.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's always a strict ROI, like idea in their minds on what should and shouldn't be like funded with science. It's very weird.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, what the expectation. Well, I mean, I have an idea of what the expectation is, but like, you're losing decades, if not more, of like institutional knowledge, and like, I have no expectation that these people are going to be replaced, and if they are, I'm curious then who are truly going to replace these people, and like, is the ultimate plan is to pretty much like just like I think as Prime mentioned, I think the Department of Education essentially like no longer exists currently, right? And it's like, well, I don't think you can easily bring that back. Whoever the next president is, assuming the next president wants to do that, right? I'm assuming that would like probably take also a number of years if you want to truly resurrect the Department of Education. And so, if the same goal is to pretty much essentially truly totally dismantle the National Science Foundation, I'm just curious, like, yeah, how it's going to, or like, what is the expectation in a Republican or conservative's mind? Like, how is that going to play out in the long run? Because like, well, what are you going to invest in? Or like, it's like, I don't know if this is just like a marketing or messaging thing, but like, where do they think like scientific achievements and advancements like come from? Like, and you just had the Artemis 2, space launch, right? That that was NASA, right? I mean,
Yeah.
did they view that as a victory? Or
Well, they also
like,
cut NASA.
Of course. Yeah, NASA's massively cut.
but like,
Yeah.
but NASA, like, from what I understand, NASA is essentially a government institution. Like SpaceX didn't achieve what NASA did, and not anywhere close, from what I can tell. Right?
SpaceX is holding back NASA from achieving its goals. But sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say, Dr. Greg?
I totally agree, man. Yeah, it's a weird. Like, I really think like institutionally we have to start separating out budgets from politics from this kind of stuff. It has to be like a Fed thing, like directly to the Fed. Like the Fed does like a really good job at being technocratic. There's like the whole kind of weird thing that it's like a third party and it controls our money, and that kind of leads to a lot of like conspiratorial thinking and like lines of attack that in that way. Like, but also it does a really good job in the fact that it's democratically ran by the governors. They're elected governors in these like the spots, or I actually don't know how they. I think the regional banks like choose them or something like that. And anyway, there's these governors and they all vote within the Fed to like raise or lower interest rates and stuff like that. And it's really like the most technocratic, I would say part of our government, but it's not a part of our government. But because maybe we should steal that. Maybe we should take that idea and like spin it out so that science can't be impacted by this stuff, and it's more technocratic. They let scientists kind of like say what we need or don't need. And I don't know. I don't think that like strict congressional overhaul or if review and strangle on the process is, if this is how it's going to be, like we're just not going to have science in the future. So it's like we have to do something.
But then, like, from what I'm understanding, because like based off of multiple conversations in the past, like you value highly the democratic process, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like you wanted to maybe, from what I understand, I could be misunderstanding, like you want some sort of carve out of like, well, let's say science or science funding should not be subject to democratic whims, because like you realize that it's super important to preserve in the long run, and that it shouldn't just be you shouldn't just be able to gut these institutions like on a whim, just because people are now anti-science, right?
Yeah, I think that they have, I mean, you have technocratic, I mean, sorry, democratic processes in the Fed and the chairman being elected. Maybe you'd have something similar like that. And then, but yeah, I don't know, man. I think like, I mean, it's a tragedy of the commons scenario, which is like a real like linchpin of democracy. It's like the Achilles heel, part of one of a couple. And this is a huge problem. People don't understand how important science spending is until our entire generation gets swept behind, and like we can't catch up for 2 generations, 3 generations, and then we're like, oh man, remember when we were like the technological center of the world and everyone wanted to pour money into our markets, and like it floated our entire economy? Like basically our entire economy is being floated right now because our value is devaluing enough that foreign money is like flowing into our markets and propping up the stock market. That's really it. We would probably be in a massive recession right now if it wasn't for the fact that our dollars devaluing to the point where it's actually like a huge investment opportunity to invest into a growing economy. So my point is, like, I don't know how that got from democracy to this, but it sucks, man. I think tragedy of the commons, and I think you have to tell people like what it is, and then maybe people vote on that's the representative part of the democracy, right? Where you have chairs of this National Science Foundation or something that's being elected, but whether or not you have direct control of Congress over these things, that would be something that I would be wary about.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I said like I'm not sure if it's like if it's a marketing or messaging issue, because I think, and I could be wrong, but like I think part of the reason is because people don't. I think most people, but I could be wrong, that most people don't truly understand, how science funding works and how how technological developments and science advancements like work. Because people do, at least in my experience, people do genuinely think that, like, let's say pharmaceutical research.
Yes.
Like, they think that all pharmaceutical research is done by pharma companies.
Yes.
And like,
oh my God. Every conversation.
And to a certain extent, obviously, pharmaceutical companies do carry out research, like they carry randomized controlled trials, but there's a whole infrastructure and a dozen steps before it ever gets to that level. That and unfortunately, like scientists are not the best communicators, and that might include myself, but also like we don't market that the foundational research, or we don't make the true connection of like this foundational research led to this pharma company being able to develop this drug.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Physicians don't like create the technologies the medicine that they inject into you. Like it's so frustrating. I really do think medical doctors would be like physicians, public health officials would be a huge advancement in their credibility by saying that like we are not scientists, we are not experimenting on you. Like there's no experiment going on right now where I am practicing medicine with you right now in this room. Like this is not the experiment. That the experiments have already been done by scientists that are doctors that are good. Like talk about those, bring up those people more.
I agree with that sentiment you just said, Dr. Greg, in that like, and I've said it before on previous, Anti-MAHA Headquarters streams here that we've had together. That the doctors themselves, right? Like the doctors that you and I visit, right, aren't medical researchers, right? Those are two different things. For the most part, most of the people who are here, right, like you haven't like actually talked to a medical researcher. Sometimes you do, right? Every so often they are one and the same, but for the most part they aren't. And those doctors don't necessarily understand like the medical research that went into creating a particular drug. They're not part of that process. They don't. That's a different set of skills, right? They're part of the medical field, but it doesn't mean they understand every single part of the medical field. They have a specialization, right? And that's treating you, which is good enough, right? But they rely on information and innovations provided by others, right? being those medical researchers, being those private companies, being those universities,
Yeah.
being the funding that powers all of that, right? Like there's an ecosystem between like the idea of some sort of medical innovation, right? And then your doctor like hand you a script, right? There's like a whole invisible ecosystem, and people don't appreciate that. Now, what I'm going to say is that like I think this is a failure on um, uh, not just so this is an active attack by Republicans, but it's a failure by everyone else. That
Mhm.
like we have not made the case, the proactive case for a government, right? I think Democrats. I'm not trying to like make this like a hard partisan issue, but like I'm just trying to like point out that Democrats for the longest time have made the case, have signed on to the case that the government needs to be shrunk, right? Or the government is bad or suspicious, or that the government doesn't or the government should be shrunk because like the government's wasting your taxes. Like, well, like, what is it good for? Well, government's good for a lot of things, right? This is just one of those examples, these invisible things. But like, there's not a story being told about like what government provides. Instead, there's a lot of neoliberalism happening where it's like, oh, well, the markets will take care of it, right? Let's have like a public-private partnership or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Where public money ends up in private hands, and they'll take care of it. But like making the case to the public as to like, well, what does this do? What are your taxes for? You know, um, not just simply like tax the rich, right? Which is a good message, but like really like what's a proactive message for taxes? Because we don't know, right? Like what they experience around them is what they understand, right? And so like
Mhm.
if they'll see things like, hey, my potholes aren't being fixed. That's the thing that happens, right, within a locality, right? Then they'll say a phrase, well, what are my taxes even good for, right? But like they'll really mean that, sure, again, like your local taxes, yes, maybe they should be going into those potholes, fair enough, right? But like they don't know, they literally have no idea, they no clue as to what their taxes do, right, on all levels. We aren't taught that, like that's not a thing that we let people know about, right? And so that infrastructure is being attacked by Republicans, right? Actively
Mhm.
attacked. You'll have those same people who rely on that infrastructure, right? That massive government infrastructure. You'll have them cheerleading. Yes, destroy that platform that I'm standing on. They don't know they're standing on the infrastructure. They don't know the infrastructure exists. It's so
Exactly.
wide and so broad, right, that it looks like it's the ground that they're standing on. No, you're not. You're standing on government scaffolding.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I feel like I'm somewhat semi-serious, like about, but like I feel like moving forward. I don't know if this you can actually legislate this, but like I think every new drug that's prescribed down the road, like every doctor should be able to like give like a 5 or 10 minute pitch of like the historical history of this drug and like the foundational research that led to its approval, starting from like from the academic institution, like this finding led to this finding led to this finding led to this Ozempic that I'm
Yeah.
prescribing you now, because like there's like anybody there's a saying in pharma research of that gap of like going from academic research to a pharmaceutical drug. It's literally like from bench to bedside. Okay, it's like how do you go from the bench, the foundational research, to the actual getting it to the patient? And there's a huge gap there, of like how do you actually bridge that gap. There's a whole field translate that's what translational research is all about. It's like how do we get all this foundational knowledge that we have that's coming from academic institutions, and how do we apply it in to something that is like a patentable drug. But like again, that has pretty much just been spoken about. Like that whole infrastructure and that foundation that everyone is standing on they're just like not aware of it, until whatever 5-10 years down the road, you no longer have drugs being developed. You don't have the
Mhm.
next generation of your Wegovy or your Manjaro.
Yeah, and I don't, man, it's tough because it's like it's so like people don't understand like what happens in science. They don't understand how expensive things are. They don't understand what the process is. So it feels like how would you write the rules of an F1 race car race if you've never even seen a car, you've never even driven a car? You know what I mean? Like we can explain things to you, but you're so out of context. Like you really don't have any idea what you're talking about. Like we are literally doing Star Trek stuff. Like if you know, it's like genuinely crazy things. It's like, I mean, it really it sucks because like at one point like science absolutely has to explain itself. Like there's practical limitations with like juries and stuff, like knowing what DNA is and how paternity tests work and stuff like that, where like they need to be taught what DNA is and PCR in order to do their civic duty. But at the other time, like you get like, would people actually approve in an opinion poll on testing if like CRISPR should be done to change someone's genome? Like people would probably vote no on that. A lot of people would vote no on that. But like at the same time,
Probably, I'd agree.
we're not giving David R. Liu that chance in that human trial to like show like, oh yeah, before you even knew that we did this, or we could do this, we did do this. You know what I mean? Before when it was science fiction, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be science fiction now. We can just show you the results. So it's like, are you going to be more likely to be okay with CRISPR gene editing if we have like, here's the picture of the kid, here's like the people that we've saved? Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like impacting the public other than radically transforming their lives and fixing problems. So it's like, so why would the budget of the NSF should that be in the hands of politicians? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's I brought this example up before because like I know this was on one of Prime's panels where I was going back and forth with Rob Noor. Okay. And Rob Noor was making the case. Well, he's understandably, well, I understand from his perspective. Okay, he's against these academic institutions, and then he was more or less like advocating for more or less their dismantling. And then like my counterpoint is like, okay, well, how are you going to then like I'm assuming you have an interest in like curing cancer or like finding better treatments to cancer. And then if I remember correctly, like his exact like point or rebuttal was like, You can just let the American Cancer Society take care of that. And it's like, well, you think the American Cancer Society like does actual research? Like that was his impression, and I had to get it across to him like you're just going to reverse engineer the academic institutions because that is what the American Cancer Society does. They take money and they will distribute that money to some sort of academic institution.
It's like people think like Rob Noor's vision of, he's like a really staunch MAGA audience, my audience that's not familiar, but he's like, I feel like that kind of viewpoint, this whole like, oh, science can just be funded by donations is like this idea of like science doesn't need to have constant push, and lulls through those times that aren't productive with the return on investment. Exactly what Prime was talking about. Like that's the whole reason why science is funded through the public. It is because it's not profitable for the private sector yet. That's the whole point of it. It doesn't, research into novel mechanisms doesn't actually generate a revenue. It's the technology that you make from understanding those mechanisms that becomes something that you can patent and then sell. So it's a fundamentally like different process than the basic research of the science is different than like engineering the product and engineering how to create it. So it's so necessary, but and the idea that we don't need to fund it, or we shouldn't fund it, we shouldn't prioritize it, makes it seem like science is just this, you're going into a desk and you're like, I've never seen a pen before, but there's, what is this? What is this thing? I mean, I don't know what this is. And then you just, whoa, can I write with this? Maybe, maybe this is a pen. Like, that's not how science works. It's like a huge, arduous grind of like trying to understand and better understand and see the world. And it's like, would anyone have, other than a scientist, be studying Gila monster metabolism in the 1990s? This is probably something that Ron Paul, I should look this up because he was Dr. No and did like these speeches about stuff even back then about bad science and stuff. Is the Ron Paul's like, or Rand Paul's famous example is like, why are we studying, you know, millions of dollars on to try to find how like shrimp run underwater? It's like, well, it's because of these things lead to Ozempic and tirzepatide and like the biggest quality of life medications that 60% of the country could have, you know,
But
like
they were still lying about that too, right? Like
yeah.
even in that specific example, I forget if we talked about this before, but like in that specific example, like there was a scientist who did create a mechanism, right, for like a shrimp treadmill, right?
Mhm.
And then he like did that himself. He just like his little contraction. It was like extremely cheap. He put that shit together himself. He just
Yeah.
like did it, and it was like, and he had a reason for it. I forget exactly what the reason what he was actually trying to get to, right? But like this thing that was like blasted through Fox News as like, oh my god, see science grants, they're all fraud, right?
Mhm.
Like that even itself was a lie. It's just like literally he just like went to like a Home Depot or some crap and just like threw that thing together like on his own dime.
It's a lot of cardboard, like
Yeah,
legitimately, like it's crazy. Like academia wants you to go to the moon, but then you're literally using the old Amazon boxes in order to get there. It's like, you know, because
yeah, like
you can cut out the cardboard. It's easy to manipulate. It's easy to build with. Like we legitimately
yeah,
use
people are
cardboard for prototyping
like
constantly.
it's like like why can't they just like make things that are useful for us, right? Like don't
Yeah.
put money into like this like experiment, right? This like tech experiment about like what light going through diodes. What is that for? No, instead
Yeah.
hand me my iPhone, create
Exactly.
the iPhone and hand it to me, right?
Exactly.
Like there's a certain number. I don't know the number off the top of my head, right? But like the amount of like patents and like that went into the iPhone, right? Like all the like these like discrete like innovations, right? That built right this incredible technological breakthrough that is the smartphone, right?
Mhm.
I think I think it's over 100. Again, don't quote me on that, but like it's
Probably.
a lot. Um, and uh, and then like that together, right? All those things put together, an innovator will combine that into something novel in itself that's built on the backs of thousands of other researchers and millions of dollars that went into that, right? Before it gets into Apple's hands, right? The components get in Apple's hands, and then they're allowed to put that together, right? Like, or even before then, like, because the iPhone wasn't the beginning of like cellular phones, right? There was a lot of government investment that went into the cellular phone network, right? The iPhone is worthless without those towers there. It's worthless like without the investment that went into creating the phone system in general. Like all these things, like compound upon each other, right? And
Mhm.
once they are created, right, they give us the ability to more efficiently work and interact with the economy and with each other, which creates value over time, like innumerable value amounts of value over time, right? Like we literally can't count like what we have gotten from like a finished product like the smartphone, right? What that has done for the world economy, we can't even understand. But all of it from the very beginning built on public investments, like built on like these
Mhm.
discrete innovations that are done that are invisible to people. And so they'll tell you, yes, like instead, why don't you just like create the new iPhone? Just do it.
Well, that new iPhone, that's the Trump phone. I'm sure that's in the pipeline, right? But like,
It's
yeah,
it's shipping this month. I promise.
yeah, but Rob Noor's belief that the American Cancer Society actually does cancer research, like the American Cancer Society is like running labs. I don't know what percentage of the population that represents, but I know that it's not insignificant. Whether 5, 10%, but it's like the equivalent of like thinking that the American Medical Association carries out like the randomized controlled trials. It's not what the American Medical Association does whatsoever. But like well, just as there's a gap between going from the bench to the patient, to the bedside of the patient, of like getting that drug or that foundational knowledge to the development of a pharmaceutical drug. There's a gap there in terms of like people's knowledge of like how science is funded and how the connection between that foundational research and like the technology that we have like all around us. There's, as I say all the time, and I parrot as much as I can, like every drug on the market, like I virtually guaranteed, has its roots and foundations in academic research, like no matter what.
And just one other very quick thing, right? Like going back to that iPhone example just for a second. Like on top of that, like there's this idea of like this is a great man theory of history, right? And people just look at an individual and say like this guy was responsible for this thing, right? Like and they'll do the same. They do the same thing with Steve Jobs. They'll say Steve Jobs invented the iPhone. Steve Jobs himself will tell you he's not like a technical like innovator, right? That's not his thing. He understood products, right? Though he did understand products. He had like a vision for product development. That was
and marketing,
like,
probably.
Yeah, and marketing, yes. And being a horrible individual, he wasn't a nice person. But like, but he did have a vision, right? So he had talent. To be fair, I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but like he didn't like put that all together himself. He worked on a product and he made it so like it was something that's approachable, right? And a package that like would appeal to a mass number of people. He had a vision for that kind of stuff. So shout out to him. But there was a mass, like even within Apple, right? There were a massive number of people who worked on this product before it got there. Again, we're not even talking about at this point the researchers beyond that. But but with this idea that there was just like one guy who just like goes into a lab and knocks out, especially at this point in history, right? Where like new innovations are just so freaking complex, right? All those big innovations are just so incredibly complex, right? And I was like utter charlatans like Elon Musk to say like, oh yeah, no one knows manufacturing like I do, right? And they'll think like he's the inventor of Tesla or anything like
he assembles each and every one of those cars, I'm sure of it.
He doesn't know anything about automotive design, which is why the one car that he did have oversight over, the Cybertruck, is a complete disaster, an unmitigated disaster, right? The other ones were designed by actual automotive engineers, and then he gets to it, right? With his big brain, he designs a Cybertruck, an unmitigated disaster.
It's true, man. Yeah, Andre Karpathy. Oh, 5 minute. How's it going? Thank you. Andre Karpathy is like the AI genius that did Tesla like full self-driving, like, and he's like one of the founders of OpenAI and all that kind of stuff. And I've been reading more of his stuff since like getting more into AI development in the last like 2 or 3 months, and it just goes to show like people like that in a meritocratic society, like who that guy is, who David R. Liu is. Like I could list a dozen scientists right now that those are the scientists that are changing your life, like, and you don't even know about it. And it's just like this wild world that we have where the people that are actually trying to improve your life are having systematically everything removed around them through like this fascist hellscape that's happening in our sciences. And but instead of that, we're replacing this with like this hyper capitalistic consumerist, like Elon Musk driven world of like him getting all of the the major, he's getting a ton of grants. He's getting a ton of money. The number one recipient of this stuff. He's this whole bringing this guy up into this demigod feature. It's very, very weird. The Doge stuff, I'm happy that it's like completely failed and he's like, seen, but I don't think that that's going to stick. I think that has so much money now. I mean, he has more than the Pentagon budget. Like he has over $800 billion of his. So imagine like, yeah, I don't know. It's extremely disconcerting the amount of money that he has, I guess. But my point is like science is that mechanism in order to enable good quality of life changes versus let's give all our power and money to one guy. Oh.
But let's say on the note that you brought up of like scientists that we should know, I do want to mention that we did lose, in my mind, a pretty noteworthy scientist this past couple of days, Craig Venter. I assume you're more familiar than I am with Craig Venter.
Dude, the New York Times, picture that he had, behind those algae things, it was like the algae and those things. I worked in that greenhouse. That was my.
Okay, yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy. So you put them in these huge tubes and you just like bent them and yeah. So he was in there and he did work with the guy who I started in my first academic lab, Stephen Mayfield. Him and Craig Venter were algae guys. So it's a wild world. I mean, he's known like within the science community like as more of like a eviler character because of like his.
Well, he's definitely a strong personality, and
exactly.
There was definitely some. Yeah. I think there's definitely. Well, at that level, you probably have to have a little bit of arrogance or, a hint of narcissism. Like, definitely the research that he carried out was cool. But, like, to basically, to publish your own genome and to research on your own genome, I think, takes a certain personality.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. He was the private side of the Human Genome Project, so he was kind of like a little pushed a little bit more, and they took in. ExxonMobil money through synthetic genomics, for the algae biofuels, and how they were spending that was kind of like big. But I think that he was a really big. I mean, obviously, my background is algae biofuel, so I am a fan of him still. But and I like what his was doing with molecular biology, doing CRISPR engineering of nanocropsis, which was doubling the lipid content, which was really cool. And then also with this synthetic genome that he did, the minimal organism, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So I thought he like still did like innovative, cool science, going down. And yeah, overall, I absolutely, there's like, in UC San Diego, right by. There's obviously a ton in that area in La Jolla, but one of them is the J. Craig Venter Research Institute. Mm-hmm. So it's he even has that. So JCVI.
But I don't think that's like among scientists. I think virtually he's well known, but I don't think the general public is generally aware of Craig Venter. I could be wrong about that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think he's kind of like niche. Maybe he's like bigger in like the early turn of the thousands, like 2000s. It's like just during that kind of like human genome kind of thing. But yeah, he's. I mean, it is sad. It is sad. I think anyone that's gonna devote their life to science like that and stuff, I don't think that. I commend him. So.
Yeah, no, like, Prime, is that a name that you are familiar? Have you heard of that name before? No, we didn't expect you to.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, but like in our time, like arguably, among scientists, sort of like one of the rock stars of biology, and arguably one of, if not the founder of synthetic biology, or definitely a key figure in synthetic biology.
Yeah, him. Francis Collins, like that was a big name, or Human Genome Project year 2000. Yeah. It's but it's basically it was the race to like uh, do the sequencing of the first genome of a human, and it was like a huge milestone.
And he
And
wanted to compete against he did compete against the Human Genome Project,
Mhm.
and he believed in himself for sure. And yeah, I'm curious how he's going to go down in the I think it's more or less, let's say, understood, or like it's marketed as it was a tie. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
actually true. That it was a tie, but
sure. Yeah, that's how my recollection is too. Yeah, and I actually don't know like what the publication history or whatever is. So
I believe technically, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong.
mm,
I just going way back in the recesses of my brain, but I think it was like there was a paper published in Nature, like from the Human Genome Project, and then the next day it was like Craig Venter's publication in Science for the human genome, and I think they had like an
interesting.
agreement.
Dude, I remember that when I was going down, dude, was in the thick of it was freaking Jennifer Doudna's lab and George Church, like 2014, bro, like CRISPR. It was like science, nature, nature, science, science, nature, and then they had like maybe two science. Like, sometimes like Doudna or George Church would have two science publications in the same week. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, what? Like, what? How does your lab do two science publications in 1 week? Like, how is that even possible? But I mean, that is just crazy, man. Like, it is, like, sometimes it's just you're in that pocket and people are making huge innovations. And that was that was another crazy time. Like the Human Genome Project, but it was probably another one of those just like that.
But yeah, I hope he gets more recognition somewhere down the
Yeah,
road.
I think he will, man. I think he will. Like most of these guys, like he was definitely one of the most well-known biologists of his time for sure. I don't think, like, for some reason biologists don't get like the credibility. I don't know. This is my anti-physics. I'm gonna start talking about. I don't
I mean,
know
yeah,
why.
that's true. I think probably
Like, the
amongst
60-minute documentaries always get to go to the theoretical physicists. I don't know why. I don't know why.
I think more people are aware of like famous physicists, and I would say famous as in like whatever, uh, like I don't. Well, at one time Lawrence Krauss was a famous physicist. I mean famous in terms of like people are aware
Yeah,
of his name. I'm not talking about like whether he was a good physicist or not, or even a good person.
yeah,
I'm just saying in terms of like people that
yes,
are aware of these individuals. I think yeah, for whatever
yeah.
reason, physicists get more attention. But I think
Yeah, I don't get. They're like the rock. They are like the rock stars of like science communication or something, or public like access. They can just. It seems. I don't know. I don't know. They have really good marketers or something. I don't
well,
know.
I think it's like there is this perception that may be justified in terms of like physics is whatever
Mhm.
the most difficult science, and there may be an element of truth to that, and therefore like it's almost like I think it is people have they make the rationale of like, well, if they're a physicist then you must be like whatever the smartest person in the room, like no matter what.
And then math comes in.
Yes, exactly.
God, it's
Or
so
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Well, also again,
yeah.
I think everyone knows of Neil deGrasse Tyson.
One more level of abstracted. It's like I used to get into so many arguments at the bar, like at the grad bar, for like biology being called a soft science against a bunch of chemists and physicists. And I'm just like, what are you guys talking about? Because the idea is that because biology has that biological black box, we don't actually know what's going on. So therefore we can't, like, our replication error is as higher, and chemistry and physics are to the point of like single molecules, so they know like mechanistically exactly what's happening, and there's not that biological black box. And it's like, I think it's a good argument, but I still think that because you can, through the process of elimination, remove one variable at a time, and you can attack a problem within biology from multiple angles. I think that that's what gives it its validity and reproducibility. So.
Well, I also think there's this aspect, and I could be wrong, but like, I think it's even amongst other scientists like chemists and all that stuff. Well, like they view the biologist like this is the person like Charles Darwin. Like you're just making observations about finches in the Galapagos. Okay, which I'm not saying that's not difficult. Okay, but since there's way I think biology is such a broad field from the biologist whatever that studies I guess maybe salmon mating habits and salmon migration habits. I don't actually know if that's a thing versus like the molecular biologist versus the chemical biologist versus the computational biologist. You have all these branches as well in chemistry, but like I think there's a little bit more overlap in the branches of chemistry than like I have no problem saying like I have no idea about plant biology or ecology or any like my expertise of biology or biochemistry is like very, very niche.
Yeah. Also, it's a weird, biology is a weird thing because like also our understanding of it is only inherent to like what I don't know. Microbiology is so broad. Like there's so many types in different types of metabolisms and life like that exists within microbiology that it is it's unfathomable. Like and how few organisms by percentage that we've actually worked on in the lab. So it would be like such a cool yeah, I don't know. There's just so many different types of life. It's hard to know. So in biology, you're never going to have that amount of information, like that type of information. But I guess in physics too, like, you could have theoretical physics, so it could be very abstract. But anyway,
yeah, no, for sure. Well, nothing brought me, and this, maybe it has into my poor character, but nothing brought me more satisfaction when I was TAing, advanced biochemistry, and in comes the organic chemist, and they don't do so well, or they find it super challenging, or they realize that maybe it's more difficult than they thought.
Yeah, I thought I especially, I mean, that's part of the part that is exciting as a biology like research scientist is that like there is stuff that you don't understand that's going in. Everything could be right. And you could do all your due diligence, know that it's correct. Everything is set up in this experiment and something just doesn't happen. And you're like, why? And that's part of the fun. That's like the friction. That's like what makes it different, So because you are dealing with something that's living. I mean, that's what's so cool about it. That's why it's so fun to like change their genomes and change their genes and figure out how they're working and change it a little bit and make it improved or give them a new ability. And you're playing with life. It's incredible. It's so fun to really understand. Especially like I was an evolution undergrad, so like seeing how organisms change in an environment is so thrilling, and you're creating that constantly through molecular biology. You're just doing it at a heightened scale. You're turning that speed up so you can kind of like see that process. It's
I agree. I'm obviously on the same page. I agree it's cooler, but then it's. I think, well, in my experience, like, the pure chemists or organic chemists, they don't understand just how uncontrolled an environment it is when you're dealing with a biological system, and that is where the black box. I have no problem saying like there have been times where it's like I literally have no idea what's going wrong with my experiments. I have zero explanation like whatsoever, just because it's like there's so many things that could have gone wrong in dealing with biological system.
Well, we got a huge list of things to go through. So we are winning, guys. We are winning. We're winning so much against Maha, and it's because of us. It's because of this podcast. We are doing it. They're mad and they're cooling on Trump and Republicans. On a sweltering night in 2024, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read it, but this
It was a
Maha,
fairly long article,
yeah,
pretty in depth, but a good article.
yeah, it's like a Maha, this initiative that these packs are being run, and they have these donors, and they have these revved up granola crunchy moms, and now they're kind of having this problem of all the things that they had talked about in the campaign. They're going against all of it. And think about what, if you wanted to primer, like, think about what RFK was talking about in the election versus what's happening now. I mean, you have people that are hesitant about glyphosate. Now they're increasing glyphosate production. They were worried about like all this pollution and stuff in the environment, and thought microplastics were this big problem, and now they're dumping even more microplastics. I mean, there's so many different ways that these people were lied to, basically. I mean, RFK knew that they were lying, that he was lying. Trump knew that he was lying, but these people, they didn't know that they were being lied to, and they're finding it out right now, and they're kind of sad. They're sad about it.
Yeah, these people were essentially conned, but part of me I have some mixed feelings, because it's like, as you brought up, these are sort of like the granola crunchy moms, and I think one of the profiles they do is like, it's from a mom from California, so I assume at one point they were like a Democrat, or they probably like left leaning, but then they were coerced, so to speak, or they bought into the Maha movement, and that made them like flip, because like, yeah, just like we mentioned before, I mentioned before, of like, the anti-vaccine movement did start off in my mind as like a left-wing movement, from those same granola crunchy moms, but now it's like, it's squarely in the MAGA movement and the Maha movement, and I think these moms are part of that.
Yeah, I mean, like, Prime, one of the big,
I'm not sure I want them back, is pretty much my sentiment.
Well, that's the thing. Their whole thing now is that politicians are corrupt, and both sides are corrupt. That's their conclusion. So do you think that we can, what do you think?
Sorry, repeat the question.
So basically, after being disillusioned from these Republicans, right, and they're Republican Party voters, but now through the election they're being conned, and now they're seeing this, and their conclusion is like, both parties are corrupt. Like, politicians are corrupt. I feel like I hear a lot of these guys saying it's like both sides are really corrupt. Like, do you think that is like a building block for like a bridge building moment, or is it more of just like, could there these people lost?
I don't know. It depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to get them to vote for the Democratic Party, then they might be lost, because the Democrats are corrupt. They do corruption. They are involved in it. They take money from special interests. They act on those special interests all the time. Like, there's a crude analysis of both sides are corrupt, and then there's a more nuanced analysis of it. But in the end, both sides do engage in corruptness, and corrupt behavior. So if it's just to drag a person to the ballot box, and it's going to be difficult. I mean, but if that is your goal, okay, if that in particular is your goal, then what you have to do is show them through good works that government can do something, right? Like, you have to break it down to their local level, something that directly intersects with their lives, and then actually deliver on that. And then that'll help people restore faith in government. But on a macro level, I mean, the Democrats have to stop engaging in corrupt behavior. And we have to change the structures of our economy, both our economy and our government, that allow for these corruptions. But when people have an issue with when people um, see others saying both sides are corrupt, um, that's generally not their goal. Their goal isn't to have that fundamental change, right? The goal is short term, and it's like, well, why aren't you engaging in this political system? For very understandable reasons, they're not.
Mhm.
Um, and like again, we see that when confronted with these contradictions within these systems, right, that put people off, that discourage them, and most people like who are invested in that system, they don't actually want to do what's necessary to attract those individuals. They just want them to do the thing on November, that week in November, right? To get them out to the polls. Then after that, whatever. So are they a lost cause? Oh, I don't think so. But my goal is not necessarily to drag them to the the polling place just to accomplish something
To
like
vote
that.
blue
Like
no
I'd
matter
like
who.
to vote blue no matter who. Exactly. Yeah. My goal would be to actually form political movements with them, to create change both within their lives and on a broader international scale. Part of that involves voting for me. Part of that involves voting, but it's not the end all be all. And certainly, there's no, I have no loyalty to corrupt individuals, corrupt parties, that would preclude me from actually being able to honestly interact with those individuals, so those potential voters, right? I don't have to make up excuses for the corruptness of my party, right? Like you just point to the Republican Party, like, oh, well, the Republicans are the ones who are corrupt, right? And they are, absolutely are, wildly corrupt, right? But then, like when they bring up, the corruptness of the Democrats, I can just honestly engage with that. Like, oh yeah, you're correct, right? Well, here's how I want to handle that. There you go.
And actually, I'll ask you, Greg. So, if I remember in the article, so as you sort of brought up, these voters feel understandably disillusioned. Okay, and I think it's alluded to the article like they feel homeless, and they say I think something along the lines of like Democrats aren't appealing to us, or Democrats view us, or like Democrats aren't doing anything to get us on their side. But then would you want Democrats? Let's say, for example, because like these individuals, these are the types of individuals that are, let's say, they're staunchly anti-glyphosate, right? I'm assuming you wouldn't want the Democratic Party to like take up the mantle of being anti-glyphosate, or at least staunchly to that level to like
Yeah,
appeal to
exactly.
them, right?
Correct.
Um, and so it's like, well, yeah, maybe they should be politically homeless or disillusioned. I don't know. That's why I say I have mixed feelings.
I think the problem isn't that they are pro Maha. It's the problem is that they're anti-science. So
Sure.
like that their philosophy like is this a without a rudder, without the philosophical, scientific you know rudder there, they're going in any direction to whatever leader wants them to go to. And the problem is that they're probably really susceptible to algorithmic thinking and these types of ideas. I don't know if they really understand or believe like what they actually believe. Like do they like this whole food is poison thing, this whole it's just stuff like that where you're like, what are you talking about? Like the number one thing, the clip, one of the first things one of the first things that they did for the propaganda tour that the RFK does with the podcast now is he had Mike Tyson on, and
Right.
they were
Yeah.
talking about
Saw that clip.
Maha, and he said it's young people out here dying, old people don't die anymore. You're like, he's like, it's all the processed food that's killing us, and I'm just like what in the world, man? Like what? It's just I think I think that it's going to be I think that you like engage these people back by like going to their conclusions and just saying that like making their lives healthier and their food cheaper, and basically improve their material conditions are going to make them less likely to look towards conspiratorial answers in order to solve their problems, because they see their health declining, they see their people around them, the health's declining, and they're not like understanding that it probably has a lot to do with like food deserts, morbid obesity, structural problems, and they're going towards conspiratorial answers. So I think that you get them back in that way, but through kind of like a education, science communication, outreach.
Hopefully, but like
Yeah.
I can imagine like the Democratic Party making that pivot to to appeal to these types of voters, because again, like
No,
at one point,
the glyphosate thing would never happen because of Iowa. Yeah, that's just Iowa being the first primary and the corn farmers and like there's just no way the corn that was probably
But you're getting away from the point that Corey's making. Corey is talking about the broader MAHA movement. So maybe glyphosates aren't the thing, but like he's saying that like you could still appeal to those types of voters, those essentially know nothing voters from the left, right? Like there's nothing wrong with it. Like I think what you were about to say, Corey, is that like it was originally left leaning thing. The wellness movement was
yeah,
left leaning.
anti-vax, like, and it's in the article if I remember correctly. Like they largely profile moms located in California, and I don't know for sure, but like California is generally pretty like left leaning, from my understanding.
I mean,
It depends on where you're at in California, honestly, but yeah.
Like I think like look, I think that we could definitely do more in order to regulate pharmaceutical companies. And I mean, Purdue's going out of business because of what they're doing with one of their medicines and how they're pushing it. So like I think that we could totally, and that's totally okay. I'm pro. The big problem though is obviously our for-profit healthcare system and all the ills that come for that. I mean, if we had single payer private provider, I think that a lot of this
the Democrats aren't invested in actually changing that, right? The Democrats don't want to. Like the Democratic Party does not want that.
Probably not. Yeah, they're probably not going to be going for that anytime soon.
Now, again, like if a person, so focusing on that, because that's something I'm more familiar with. So if a person told me that both parties are corrupt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first I try to analyze and see exactly what they mean by that. There is an apolitical way of saying that, right? That just like it gives you an excuse to not involve yourself with like what's happening in the world, right? Like, oh, all politicians are bad, right? And so like that means I have no obligation, like I have no civic duty to pay attention, to be involved, right? I could just say that at you, hope that you'll just nod and agree with me, and then you won't ask me about anything that's at all important. We can talk about sports, whatever the fuck, right? Like that's one way of doing it. But another person will say that, well, they'll start actually pointing to failures within our political system, right? And then maybe they'll bring this up. They'll bring up the single payer, right, and how that was sabotaged by Democrats, right? That like in the moment, right, at 2000, the 2008 election, like a reason why voters chose Barack Obama. One of the major reasons why was on the fight for a greater healthcare. There was a huge movement behind this, right? And they looked at this as a victory, right? And they were expecting something. Now, I think those people weren't actually listening to what Obama said, because Obama was a bit more clear about what he meant than people want to admit. Back then, I think there was a lot of hope happening, right? But still,
it was campaign slogan, hope.
Hope and change. But he didn't really mean the change. But in any case, right? Like, still, the point is that his constituents, what is true, his constituents did expect a major shift within the healthcare industry. And then what did he do? He used a Republican plan um, that was pushed by the Heritage Foundation that didn't fundamentally challenge like our for-profit healthcare system. It just like put just rejiggered it a bit and put more money into it, like government money into it, a very neoliberal approach of things. And like he had his goon, whose name always effing escapes me every time I do this. Every time I bring this up, his name escapes me. He was mayor of Chicago, and then he was also, well, before then he was Obama's chief of staff. I always forget this guy's name.
Rahm Emanuel.
Rahm Emanuel. Thank you. Always forget this guy's name every time I go over this story. Whatever. Rahm Emanuel. He's a medical industry goon, right? Like he took an incredible amount of money. He took and takes an incredible amount of money from that industry, right? Obama put him in charge, his front man, to do this, and he sabotaged the whole thing, right? So there was a level of movement that maybe not would have gotten us a single payer, right? Maybe, yeah, it wouldn't got us a single payer, but maybe it would have gotten us some, yeah, the government option, right? Maybe we could have gotten that, but that was all from the very start, like not actually a motivation for the administration. They pretend, oh, we lost, there's nothing we can do. When they took every opportunity to lose that fight. So in any case, right? So if someone approached me with that, I could acknowledge it. I would tell them, yes, you're not imagining it. That's true, right? I don't have to blow smoke up their ass about how great the Democratic Party is. And I would say, well, our goal would be to reform that party, right? Our goal, like we have candidates, like especially right at the second, who are coming up through the Democratic pipeline, who actually, factually, care about having Medicare for all. Who we've got a movement building, right? That is more nuanced and careful. Before it was like, hey, why don't we skip everything and just like put a man in charge and he'll do everything. One, that was the man to do it. But two, even if that was the case, right? Like you still have to change the legislator because the president really does only have so much power. So you have to change the legislator and build the slow work of coalition building to actually make this happen. Well, that's what we're doing now, right? And I would say yes, it's actually worth getting involved in the electoral process, worth like being part of the primary process, and like finding those candidates, supporting them, even if you're not in their state, supporting them either monetarily or through volunteer work, so that they can become the nominees, and then they can hopefully win their race and get into Congress. And that's how we build power, and eventually, slowly, unfortunately, that's how we get to where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good agent of change, man. I think, I think the Democrats have to solve this stuff. They have to go in there and they have to propose like better ideas. It's embarrassing that we have our healthcare outcomes and how expensive it is, and I think that people have insane premiums right now that they're seeing it going up. So hopefully is that impetus that we can just pass single payer private provider. I mean, that's my goal. That would be my dream.
So I'm obviously ignorant because I'm up here in Canada, but is there an average like premium amount that a person pays, or is that
it's going up because they 30% of people in the Obamacare, like the Obamacare, the signups are going down. People are just losing their health care because it's so expensive. It's 30 huge jumps. So like which is when those people drop their
they don't pay a
healthcare,
penalty for that, or
no,
I don't
not
maybe
anymore. That was long gone, stripped by the Supreme Court. So that's long gone. There's basically there's nothing left of Obamacare other than the you can stay on your parents' health care until you're 26, and the exemptions before, like you you don't have any exemptions that can kick you off of your health care. Those are like the two things.
So then, like in effect, or like over time, Obamacare has been eroded to the point of
Mhm.
not being what it was.
Yeah. And now before, and once the individual mandate dropped off, basically healthy people are in the pools. Those pools got more expensive because there's not that healthy people in there to kind of even out the costs. And then now with the hiking risk, the rates, people are just dropping it. So which is going to make everyone's healthcare more expensive because they're going to have to go in, to hospitals and the emergency room and get care, which is then going to increase everyone's healthcare costs. So the hell loop continues. It's so exhausting, man. It's crazy.
And I don't know if this information is available, and it could be misremembering, but from what I understand, like Obamacare overall, I think this was a talking point of like it increased the number of insured people in the United States by X number of million, I believe. But then, is there data showing like the number of uninsured going up as a result of this erosion of Obamacare? Is that data available or?
Yeah, I was looking at the polling that this month is out because of this year, and it was like a 30% increase in the people dropping from the Obamacare stuff, which is specifically like if you're in the federal Obamacare stuff, you're basically in a state that doesn't have their own exchange. So if you don't have your state that has your own exchange, you're in a Republican state. So this is a lot of people that are in Republican states now going without healthcare.
So it is essentially just regressing to pretty much how it was before Obamacare, if I'm understanding the overall sentiment.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. But worse because it's more expensive.
Right.
And you said the average cost. So I looked at the average median household spending is like around $600 per month in 2024 to 2025. So that might have gone up substantially with I've seen like bills for like way higher than that now. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
And this isn't again, I'm ignorant, so maybe it just might just be my ignorance, but just the overall system just seems so complicated. It's like, well, why bother type of thing. Or I can understand maybe the calculation of like someone saying like why bother type of thing. But I don't actually know if that's true.
Yeah, I'm frustrated that like California's not doing our own single payer like system. I think that's really embarrassing. Because that's basically how like Canada does it. All the provinces do it their own thing or their own section. That's what the big sections are, right?
Yeah, each province handles its own healthcare.
You call them sections instead of provinces?
Provinces or provinces? I'm sorry, I was.
That's why you don't need to apologize.
No. I think you should. Right? They're that's sections. But okay, go ahead.
Until the United States becomes the 11th province, okay, or the 11th section.
Yeah.
Your daddy was hanging out with us. How did that feel? Your daddy was hanging out across the street.
Yeah, sure. But like, yeah, like I don't know, just dealing with this is just mostly information that I received anecdotally, but just the nightmare of like dealing with all of the like whatever the bureaucracy of insurance just seems like awful. Not only just it also just seems like an added stressor if you're dealing with an illness, especially a chronic illness. That's sort of a complaint that I sort of come across regularly.
Yeah, it's very, very embarrassing. It's Newsom's. Someone in the chat's asking, can you talk about Newsom's approach to healthcare? Not a Californian here. It's awful. It's really sad. He vetoed that something like bills that would have done, gotten us universal healthcare. So yeah, it's sad. Like I wish Newsom would have done it, and it's a really big stain for him. But Yeah, I mean, healthcare insurance companies are just a parasite, man. They're awful.
I mean,
Yeah,
make no mistake, we have like major issues up here in our healthcare system, but like, yeah, and I'm a heavy user of our healthcare system, our Quebec healthcare system. But like, I don't know, like for me, like just being able to walk into an emergency room and like cost just like never enters my mind like whatsoever, or any like the finances is just never
yeah.
has never been in my brain.
Newsom is a slimy politician, the slimiest, and like a naked, um, um, like political actor, like grabbing power. Like he's not ideological driven, right? That's why he went on those Republican podcasts and told them all, like, "Oh, wow, you've got like a really good point." All of them. Oh, he told, what was it? I forget who it was. Was it Tim Pool? No, it wasn't Tim Pool. It was what's his face? The one who got shot.
Oh, Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk. He went on Charlie Kirk. I believe it was, if I remember correctly, it was on Charlie Kirk's podcast. He talked about how his son really likes him a lot, right? Which I believe, because I don't think Gavin Newsom has ever instilled in his son like any sort of um, loyalty to leftist, or sorry, not leftist, but liberal or even certainly not progressive values, right? Like, I imagine his son is instilled with like, again, I don't know him, I don't even know what the kid looks like or anything like that, but I imagine his son has seen his father, who have been all about maximizing profit, has all been about like making a dollar for himself, and then wanted to emulate that. And then in that space, oh yeah, Charlie Kirk seems like a great idea, right? I don't think his father makes a case for like how good the government is. I think if his father thought he had a better chance of making it on the Republican ticket, he absolutely would do that. And so like, yeah, it's not surprising to me when in these moments for these critical things, pieces of legislation that would empower workers, or and or would um, detract from the power of capitalists, right? That he always chooses the side that enriches capitalism, right? Like every time, right? This is why he's fighting against the billionaires tax, right? The one-time billionaire tax that California is trying to pass. He's vehemently against it. Those are his buddies. Those are his friends. Those are his pals, right? I saw a story. I think it was just yesterday. I saw a news report talking about how Sergey Brin, right, one of the inventors of Google, confronted Gavin Newsom at one of their cocktail parties. He walked right up to him and he let him know, give him a piece of his mind. And Sergey Brin then abandoned California and went to, I'm not sure what the timeline is, whether it's before or after or whatever, but like he left, and from I think he's living in New Mexico or Arizona, one of those states, right? He has been launching a campaign against this billionaire tax, and the number that was reported to me that he spent for it, $50 million. This guy's against the tax, and he spends $50 million. And that story is repeated all along. Whenever you see politicians like Mom Downey too, right? The amount of money billionaires spent, right, so that they wouldn't get taxed, tens of millions of dollars that they don't want to get taxed though, right? And part of that is just a quick side note. Like, if you're wondering why they do that, right? It's because they don't want the idea out there that they can be taxed, they can be controlled, right? So it's worth it to spend more money than they would be taxed, right? Because they want the idea that they're above that, right? And that their taxes should be for the good of the economy, right? You don't want to scare us off. You don't want to actually attack our wealth at all, right? That would be crazy, right? I'll spend more money on this single tax because they don't want you to get additional taxes in the future. That's their thinking. In any case, but that's the thing. Gavin Newsom was in a cocktail party with Sergey Brin, and who knows how many other billionaires. He was just hanging out, just pals with them, right? And when Sergey Brin came up and gave him a piece of his mind, right? He said, "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. I apologize, sir." Right? I'll take care of it. Yes, of course. This is what he is. Those are the people. Those are his people. He's a multi-millionaire himself. My understanding is that Gavin Newsom. Those are his people, not you. So don't be surprised when Gavin Newsom does these things, right? It's not a shock, right? And he'll go on stage, right? He'll pretend like he's really listening to the average worker, right? He's just like you because he had a bad SAT score. That's a real thing that he said, honestly. Yeah. He'll pretend to be just like you, but no, he's not like you, and he doesn't have your same interest in heart. So yeah, so I leave it there.
Yeah, man. It sucks. It sucks. I mean, I wish California could lead on like more of these issues and show like and be more progressive on like showing how legislation can work in order to solve problems. I think it's cool to, whatever, to say that you're the fourth largest economy in the world, but if you don't have anything to show for it other than, just that number, there's more opportunity here for sciences and technology for sure. But to say that like we shouldn't or can't have these other things that all these other, if we're the fourth largest economy in the world, then why are all these other economies lower than us capable of having single payer too? Like, so it doesn't make any sense to me. I think the idea is like that. It's
And
like,
never forget that we just compared the population of Canada to California. I think it's about
yeah,
equivalent,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. I mean, the scale, common economies of scale shows that we should be able to afford it. Well, it's it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
And Newsom seems popular.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
He's not. I don't think he's as popular as you think he is.
I think that
Yeah,
he's.
I could be wrong.
I don't
his
think that
name-
he's like. I think I think the Democratic Party is like very
general.
unpopular. So yeah.
Th-
So
that's
he's gonna be
absolutely
like
the case.
on median, like on.
I guess
like,
when I say pop, I mean
yeah.
also like name recognition as well. Like
He has high name recognition. Yes.
Yeah.
And he's tried. No, my because I don't like him. My initial responses to attack him is saying yes because he runs to cameras, but like that's what they all do. I mean, that's just like a part of being a politician. You got to make yourself known. So it is what it is. But still, he's clearly been the more salient point is that he's clearly been angling for the presidency, and he even well okay that's going to be a hard. I don't want a large tangent as to what happened during the last presidential cycle. The point is that yes, he's angling very much so to be president. He's always seen himself as presidential material, and so he's
That
made
makes
sure
sense.
that his name is nationally known and internationally known.
And well, I do appreciate his ability to mock Trump, and pretty much like use his tactics. That's about the only, I guess, redeeming quality.
But that's the thing. But that's the problem. See that, and I this is not an attack against you, Corey. All right, to be right.
No, you
there.
can attack me.
Um,
Go for
Idiot.
no, this is like that's like the easiest thing to do, right? No, like
True.
like
Yeah,
really
it's
think
low
about it.
effort for sure.
No, yeah, but like I really want people to focus on that. Like it's like the easiest thing to do. Symbols, right? And attack slogans. This is what's like the basic thing to do, rather than providing anything else. And so, right, you'll get Gavin Newsom, who once again will betray the workers every time. He's like has a habit of betraying the workers, right? When push comes to himself, when you actually have legislation, when he can't just sloganeer out of it, when like policy is about to be created, right? And dollars are going to be lost for his billionaire friends. He'll side the billionaires every single time, right? So you'll have a person like him who will be well known, right? And what Corey did, again, I'm just using you as an avatar here, Corey, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
But like Corey will, a person from their position who's like outside your, who lightly engages with American politics, I'll say, right? Like what they'll say is that, yeah, well, I like him because he's a fighter, right? He fights the guy that I don't like. Okay, well, anyone can do that, right? You know who else did that? The now I'm blanking on his name.
Rahm Emanuel. I'm just kidding.
Not Rahm Emanuel this time, right? But he's actually also that type. I wasn't thinking about him, but he's actually also that type. He's like quick. He's witty, like that. So he's good with the sloganeering. I was thinking about him, but he's one of those two. No, the former governor of New York, who just got his butt kicked by Mamdani.
Oh, Cuomo?
Cuomo, yeah. Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo. Do you remember this? This was during the pandemic, right? There were people who everyone was so excited about him, like at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, he's
right?
like daily press I thought he was awful. Like I never liked him.
His daily press conferences where he would fight Donald Trump and he would make a big show of it, right? And then like resistance liberals were like, he's so amazing. They called themselves, nope, I didn't make up this term. I didn't make it up, right? You can look it up. They called themselves Cuomo-sexuals. That's a real thing that happened. That's a real thing that happened. Yeah.
I don't
you look
I
it
think
up.
that aged poorly. I believe you.
It's true.
That aged poorly.
Yeah. Age
or maybe too true.
Yeah. It aged very poorly, right? So yes. But the thing people are focused on is that Cuomo, like and they're right to focus on this, to be clear, right? Like Cuomo was like a serial like sexual harasser, right? And that came out later on, and that was a big fall for his career. But for our purposes here, right, the more, and that is an important thing, but like in terms of substantive, in terms of policy, right? The big thing about Cuomo was that he created this group within the New York legislature, and I'm blanking on the name, but they had like a specific name. They in this group, it was basically like these like conservative Democrats and like these like I think conservative Democrats and Republicans, and their whole goal was to stop any sort of progressive legislation, all of it, right? Cuomo would pretend, oh, I'm fighting for you, like I'm on your side. The New York legislature, oh no, they refuse to go along with it, and so there's nothing. There's a name for this. I forget what this name is. But there was this group. But he was behind the group. There was, and this wasn't the race that just went by. There was a previous race for the New York governorship, right? Where that woman from Sex and the City, the redhead.
Oh, you know what I'm talking? I know who you're referring to, but I don't know the name offhand.
Look it up if you could for me.
I think Cynthia Nixon.
Cynthia Nixon, thank you so much. Cynthia Nixon. She ran for governor, right? And she lost, unfortunately, right? But this was her big contribution because she like let the New York people know what was happening, right? She made this part of her campaign. She's like, yeah, this is what this guy is doing. He's sabotaging any legislation that moves New York forward, that attacks the money, right? And then he's pretending like he's some big progressive fighter, right? Look at him. But that's how he could craft it all, right? Sabotage the workers, sabotage the average individual, right? Behind the scenes, but then in front of the cameras, right? He does the thing that, again, not attacking my friend Corey, but he does the thing that was identified that Gavin Newsom does, right? And he gives zingers at Trump, right? And so he must be one of the good ones. He's not one of the good ones. That's the easiest thing to do. Policy is what matters all the time. Only thing. That's what matters. The rhetoric, right, is just words.
Oh no, I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Again, not attacking you, friend.
No, you can attack me. That's fine. In fact, I encourage it. Attack me more. But like, and I agree with you that, let's say, mocking Trump, okay, and like whatever, tweeting is like low hanging fruit. But let's just say, unfortunately, the sad reality is, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but it seems like that is what is actually like politically effective. I agree with you that ideally people should value policy, but it's like, I think, unfortunately, a sad state of affairs of like the rhetoric, Trump's rhetoric of, no new wars, that got him elected, but then he can now start a war, right? As in, like, it doesn't matter what he says. As long as he's saying the right things, that is what, for whatever reason, okay, bad reasons, that's what gets people to vote for people like that. So yeah, like, I agree with you that, let's say, people should not value, myself included, Gavin Newsom's ability to, let's say, mock Trump, okay, or let's say to, attack him through rhetoric. But yeah, it does seem like that is what
Jasmine
people
Crockett
value.
was another one of these, right? Who I liked, because she was really, really good at it. Really good at the zingers,
Yeah,
at
she got good
attacking.
viral clips for sure.
Mhm.
She was extremely skilled at this, right? But she was also like riddled with special interest conflicts. And she had no real answers when confronted. Because she like literally just kept trying to deflect. But she was riddled with those special interest conflicts, and she tried to run for Senate, right, to be the nominee. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Senate.
think
Yeah,
she lost to James
Senate nominee.
Tallarico, I believe.
She lost to James Tallarico. Yeah.
Mhm.
And who doesn't like particularly like completely align with my interest, James Tallarico. But he was simply more real, more of a real person than Jasmine Crockett was. But Jasmine Crockett, resistance liberals love her, right? She's a lot of fun. To be clear, she actually is a lot of fun.
She's
She's
entertaining, but
like
like yeah, but
she's really entertaining.
entertainment factor should not be like part of the political equation, right? But it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally have reality star as your president, right? So it's like,
Yeah, but like that's the thing, right? Because the reality, like looking at these people as like celebrities, right, rather than as public servants there to do a job, right? Like it allows you to flatten things. Like it's so much easier. So again, it's so much easier to give a slogan that people can repeat, right? Or to give a zinger that like becomes a meme that like you send to like your Facebook friends, right? That then to actually engage with like the hard matter and like it's honestly very difficult, right? To like engage with like policy. It's so much harder and so much it requires so much more of an investment. So like those zingers will always go farther. Always, right? So yeah.
Do you think that like removing cameras and video recording from the House and Senate would make them more likely to engage and discuss with one another? Because like when I grew up, I was always wondering. th- I was like, I would love to just have be especially at the Iraq War and just like knowing all that lying and corruption is was happening. Going through my high school years, like I was always like, man, they should just have a live feed of the government at all times, so you can just see what's actually happening. Like, what's the presidential meeting like we should be able to see it. We're the people, what he's the people's president, like, come on. And I always thought that that would be an interesting thing for like a president to do, to like, okay, we're going to make this public so that people can be held accountable, that you can see I'm not being bribed, that I'm like that we're ingesting information, figuring out what's going on. But now, like, I think about that now and I'm like, oh, that's a live streamer. That's a live, that's just basically someone
Mhm.
streaming from their thing. And what you're going to have is you're going to have people performing to the camera. And I think that that's what happens in the House and the Senate, is that they perform to the camera versus like actually
theatrics.
engaging with anything. Yeah. So I
That's
wonder
a
if we just get rid of the camera, or like the SCOTUS, like keep the audio. The audio is out there with SCOTUS, but it doesn't become a spectacle.
that's a good question. That's a really good question. It's something I've thought about myself as to what like I've had that same conflict, exact same conflict that
Or
you
even like
had.
the presidential
Uh,
debates, right? Should those like
Mhm.
should that just be an audio only type thing? I don't know.
Mhm.
yeah. That's an interesting idea too. Actually, as well. There's a whole Nixon Kennedy debate, and like
Mhm.
the dichotomy there, where people say that people who listened to debate thought that Nixon won like hands down, right, like on the radio, because that's the thing that people did at that point in time. And then those who watched it, like I believe this is the first presidential debate that was aired, right, thought that Kennedy won because Nixon was a sweaty mess of a human being. Um, so I mean, yeah, I mean, literally
I mean, this is
aesthetics.
a
Like,
well-known thing in human psychology of like attractiveness and your physical appearance like plays a
oh
role in
yeah,
how people see you.
yeah, and
Go ahead.
Nixon, yeah, not camera ready the way like Kennedy was, right? Not at all, right? Kennedy was probably wearing makeup, honestly, too. But in any case, uh, so in terms of the Congress, I think it's a very good question.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right, friend, when you say that they play to the cameras or theatrics, like our friend Corey said. That like that is they're like most of the speeches. You look at these things, obviously, like they're not talking to even real people. Like they're just they like they'll just like make a speech just to make a speech. Like honestly, like even the whole thing, right? Like like most of those speeches are done to like an empty Congress, right? Like in like when the Congress is like not like the full Congress isn't in session, you'll see it, right? Like if you
Yeah.
actually go like look at C-SPAN, right? Look at the footage, you'll notice like there's empty seats behind them because like almost no one is there at that point in time. They're making this right, like for to get a clip out of it, right? So like there's that. So I think there's a value. Yeah, I think there's value in that. Like, one, I'd definitely be willing to like experiment with it. Like, let's see what happens. We take it out for like, like a full presidential term, right? Like 4 years, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's take them out and see what happens there. That might be interesting. And especially it's interesting because like there was like people noted like a hard difference and like debate. Like one time, like actual politics broke out in Congress, and it was very strange, right? And it was very strange.
We have to read the
If I'm
bills and do our
remembering,
job. Like, what are you talking about? What?
if I'm remembering correctly, hopefully I am. This was after the Snowden revelations happened, right? Which was a big, massive political shakeup. When Snowden talked about like how like the U.S. government spying on all of us, right? Like it's a big effing thing, right? And I believe it was after this moment in time. It might have been another moment in time, but I'm pretty sure it was this moment in time, right? Where like Congress like had like a debate, like a real debate about like funding the NSA, funding our intelligence service, right? Like there's at no point in time has like the intelligence service been so close to like annihilation than in this moment in time, right? And congressmen like they weren't just like coming in like doing like, oh, here are my party lines, my talking points provided to me by like the party whip, right? No, they were like coming in giving impassioned speeches, the type that you would expect a politician, you would hope, imagine a politician would give. They actually did that because they were torn. Congress was torn about this, about what was just revealed. And so like those speeches, like you look at those are like markedly different from anything else you ever really see, right? But again, only one time, and don't worry, they didn't keep that up, right? Luckily, things went back to normal, and they did their usual nonsense. Yeah,
Politics over.
yeah.
Phew.
That was a close one.
I know. Well,
I got
speaking of
scared.
which, guys, doing their jobs, cleaning up the streets, guys, keeping the corrupt ones out, going after the people that do you harm. Trump just making America great again, finally going after the bad guys. The former Fauci advisor indicted on COVID-related charges. Prosecutors accused Dr. David Morens, and a former advisor to Fauci, of hiding records related to the onset of the pandemic. The indictment, this is the blockbuster. The indictment says one of the scientists supplied Dr. Morens with, quote, illegal gratuities, end quote, including 2 bottles of wine and a promise of a future meal at a, quote, Michelin-starred restaurant.
How many Michelin stars?
Wow. Yeah, exactly. Just finally getting to the root of the corruption that was happening during COVID, guys.
But yeah, not to make, but like, yeah, this is like seems like a very serious, or like, well, a political persecution. Like, I think at most there's maybe some, sketchy emails, but that seems to be it.
This is all because Fauci got the pardon, and this is exactly why Fauci got the pardon, because these Republicans would have gone after him and harassed him for doing nothing wrong. Like, he didn't do anything criminally wrong. Fauci did some things like scientifically, communication wise, I would have done better, but nothing criminal at all. So they're going through his advisors, they're messing with their lives, they're trying to get to him. And like the level of corruption, the idea that 2 bottles of wine is example of like an indictment that needs to be, obviously there's no charges that can come from this, right? That it doesn't mean that he's gotten like he's going to be thrown in jail over this, but an indictment is basically them going through his stuff in his past as much as they can, trying to mess with him.
I believe they did. I could be mistaken, but I believe they did arrest him.
They did?
I believe. I'm not gonna double check. I don't want to spread misinformation. But let me. I see. I remember coming across the headline. 1 second. There's at least one article.
Dr. Dajik has not been charged with the crime. Maybe it's Morin's. I was thinking.
So this is from Chemistry World. I'll post it in our chat.
Okay. Thank you. Why not?
The arrest of David Morans, a former senior advisor to Anthony Fauci, has left many in the U.S. research community reeling and raising concerns about political persecution. Morans was indicted on 28th April on several felony charges related to the coronavirus pandemic.
Wow. Oh my gosh, dude. That's crazy. What did it say that's just happened today? Oh my gosh. That's insane, dude. Dude, the idea that they're these guys are psychotic, man. Like just crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know how you could be a scientist. Like, I don't know. I would hope this creates a huge uproar in the scientific community. I suspect that it won't, but.
Dude, what a lot? 1 second. Your thing is saying that there was some type of thing that they arrested for like alleged coordinated concealment. After the project's termination, alleged Morans and his second co-conspirator pledged to restore Dajik's bat coronavirus grant and counter the narrative on the COVID-19 virus leaked from a lab. Okay, makes sense. And because there's no reason why Dajik should have gotten that funding to that lab back. That's not a bad thing to say. Anticipating that their communications would be requested through the Freedom of Information Act, they decided to intentionally hide their communications by corresponding using Morin's personal Gmail account rather than official NIH accounts. Oh my gosh. The Trump administration uses their own emails like constantly. They literally have their own Signal chats that aren't being fed.
Yeah, and remember the Hillary Clinton email server? They pretended like they give a crap about that. Yeah, you remember that? Yeah, it's all a lie. None of it's real.
Oh my gosh, that's so weird. That's so man. These people have no. It's crazy, man. Wow. I mean, this is exactly why Fauci got pardoned. I mean, they would have harassed him for the rest of his life.
Well, I think he's still, unfortunately, still, no matter what, being harassed for the rest of his life.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah.
But I mean, yes, thankfully he's not going to prison. But I feel bad for this person.
Yeah, dude. Exactly. Man. Thank you for sharing that. Dang, what a crazy update, guys. That's breaking news. That sucks, man. That's so sad. All right, guys. Well, I think, like, genuinely, this is a win. Like, I don't know what happened or why, but apparently Casey Means, which was the Surgeon General pick that we had, who is basically like a health, like an influencer. Like, she's probably... Yeah, like that was it. Like
maybe a slight tier above because they did actually go to medical school, although I believe they never got licensed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So she went to medical school and she's MAHA, so maybe only like a 10% chance that she drinks her own pee. You know what I mean? Just like it's just a smaller, not non-zero.
And she did start a residency but never completed it.
Yeah.
So it's like, Is it like the
She's an
absolute bottom of the barrel?
opportunistic narcissist like all the rest of them. That's what she was.
Yeah.
She
Yeah,
realized there was money to be made by lying to rubes, right? And then she absolutely did it, right? She jumped full blown in, right? Doesn't care if she hurts people, right? Like she don't like if you got some problem in your life, well, link in the description, right? Like her supplement will solve it, right? Her and her brother engaged in this nonsense, right? And so like they found another charlatan, right? A kindred spirit in Robert Kennedy. And so yeah, he was she was an easy pick for him, right? Like and just like the Trump administration, right? Just a bunch of phonies and fakes, liars, up and down crooks. Yeah, Casey was a perfect fit for them. Unfortunately, she was just actually I don't know. Like if you put in RFK, I don't know why you don't put in Casey. So it's a little bit of mystery to me. But she was just like she didn't acquit herself well during her hearings. And so she just couldn't get the votes, I guess. Right, yeah.
yeah, a slight win. So,
Oh my god.
sorry.
I just realized I was just looking at the Wikipedia on the person that they're recommending, and she went to one of those like Caribbean medical
Yeah, the Ross.
schools.
That's literally what I was about to bring up because like this is like a known thing of like if you can't cut it in medical school in Canada or United States, like you go to one of the medical schools in the Caribbean, you do your residency in an affiliated hospital, and you get to practice medicine.
Yeah, if you, I mean,
Those
you're,
things
at
are
the end of
those
the,
equivalents. Like, are they considered equivalents in the United States? Can you
so
transfer?
Yeah, like you eventually end
yes,
up being the same as any doctor in the United States, but like this is sort of like a known loophole in whatever the well,
Does it count as a
it,
loophole if
no.
they're
it's
So
not really. Yeah, you're not really evading anything. It's just like I would say, I think most doctors and like I definitely know because I've taught many students that have gone to medical school. Some in Canada and some for the reasons that I know for sure because they couldn't get into medical school in Canada. They go to the Caribbean ones because like they have a whole deal, as in like that's more or less part of like their sales pitch. Well, one, you get to study in the Caribbean, so you get the nice weather, and two, like
mhm.
all of these medical schools, they have like affiliations or connections with with United States institutions where you can do residency.
Yeah,
And so it's like you end up becoming a doctor in the United States
it
anyways.
sounds like a cheaper option.
yeah. I mean,
No, it's the people that I know that went there, they tend to come from wealthy families
yeah,
because
they charge you a little bit more because they know that you're desperate, I think. But
yeah,
the I mean, it gets into like what an MD is. An MD is like a professional degree. So you're training in order to do a profession, and you need to pass boards in that state in order to have the license to do that thing. So it's just like a JD, right? Where in order to become a practicing lawyer, you need to like practice and pass the bar in that state. It's the same thing with an MD. So that's why you can have like different schools. That's why you can have different MDs and DOs, because they can also pass the same test so that they can get the same license. So it's kind of in the same vein. As long as you're passing the test and you know how to do the thing and you do your residency and you it's. I mean, I think it's funny, that it happened. Is it the worst possible thing that can happen? I don't
yeah.
think so.
I don't think it's the worst. Well, I'm not going to name names, but there's definitely there's some former students of mine that I know that that they got into medical school and completed medical school and became doctors. That if they ever walked in to become my doctor, I'd be asking for a new doctor.
I mean, she completed her oncological training at Mayo Clinic in Arizona, and she later practiced at as a physician at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, so and in Jersey. So, like at the end of the day, I think that's like where you're really, getting your your residency training is probably a little bit more important.
I think that's actually what Corey said was like a little interesting. I'll focus on that just for a second. Um, he talked about like how there's these individuals who, yes, like according to Corey, they actually did pass medical school, they're licensed individuals, but he'd be scared for his medical safety if they became his doctor, right? But like that's part of the thing I don't think people like really truly wrestle with is that doctors aren't a commodity. One doctor isn't as good as another, right? We are taught to like respect doctors as children, right? Like you got to trust the doctor, and like and for good reason, right? Like it's not like it's just like a really bad impulse, but like they just like but like hey, like the doctors know, right? He knows he's a repository of medical knowledge, right? Doctor's a guy, right? Or gal, um, and just a person. Some are fantastic at their jobs, and we're so lucky to have them. They chose that field. And others, oh my god, please, like, please do anything else. Please do something that people's lives are not on the line. You do not belong here, right? Like they're just a collection of individuals who come to this job of a different, a spectrum of opinions and capabilities and motivations, and like so some of them will be like great and some will be disastrous, and you'll unfortunately you usually don't, for most of us we don't really find out until like after damage has been done, which is really really bad. But yeah, but like they're not a commodity though, right? And so like when you say that person is a doctor, right, that comes with a level of self-respect that maybe you shouldn't, right? Just like when like when you get a plumber, right? Like there are good plumbers and there are bad plumbers, right? They are a repository of knowledge of plumbing, right? Which is important. I'm not trying to like disrespect plumbers, but like they're a repository of plumbing. But I think people are more willing to like entertain the idea that like whoever shows up, right? If you don't have a pre-existing relationship with this person, whoever shows up, you don't know what the level of skill, right? You don't know what you're gonna get, right? It's a dice roll of any contractor. But the same is true for doctors, right? The exact same truth. They're not a commodity. One is not as good as the other at all.
No, you're absolutely right. Although to be, let's say, a little bit more clear, like I haven't kept, don't have like full numbers, but I would, let's say, if I'm ballparking, let's say I have about a dozen or so former students of mine that I know have, let's say, gone on to medical school, passed medical school, and become doctors. The vast majority of them I absolutely would trust, but there are definitely some select few that like, not that I think they'll be categorically like the bad or like the worst. Like some of that is just colored by my experience, as in like, well, one, I have greater insight into your thought process, or maybe lack thereof. I also maybe for some of my former students, I also have some insight into their motivations of going into medical school. And, I might be just too judgmental, but, I think in my experience, some of them go into it for the wrong reasons, purely for the prestige, or they have the financial resources to go to places like this. And I also know like that because it literally is that like the situation for some of them, like they apply like all over the place, and then when that doesn't work out, well, go to one of these schools in the Caribbean. And I think that says something.
Well, I mean, how would you feel if that say one of if you're wary about went to like Mayo Clinic, so it's like, you'd probably feel a little bit better.
Which I know the Mayo Clinic is like, that's a prestigious, like one of the most prestigious medical institutions in the United States. But that's the thing. It's like, there's maybe a larger conversation to be had of like how much vetting even occurs at these prestigious institutions. I mean, well, even then, Casey Means came from Stanford. That's why, going back to one of our previous conversations, I think institutions should either have the power or be more liberal in revoking their degrees that they confer.
That's right. Okay. This is a big thing for yours. Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely it is. Like, I think, I don't know, that should be like a stain on the reputation of Stanford. But she uses it now as a talking point, or like as to build up her credibility, reputation of like, I'm a a Stanford trained whatever. Not, I don't know if they can actually use. I guess they can use the word doctor because they passed medical school, and they're. I think they can use the MD title even though they didn't pass residency. But like that, yes, they're not just viewed as like a doctor. They're a Stanford trained doctor, and most people view even though I think technically Stanford is not part of the Ivy League, people put it as like pretty much in that same category, in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, people. Uh, um, yeah, you can definitely glob on and make bigger things a part of your resume by talk. It's weird, they should, but I don't know. This is just but the reality is that he found out who this person was by watching Fox News, which is crazy again. So we have another like direct Fox News person to administrative officials. It's just crazy to me. On Wikipedia, talking about her though, Nicole Safier, she opposed the first Trump administration's communication about COVID and stated that the politicization of science had occurred in the administration, adding that it continued into the Biden administration. She praised Operation Warp Speed, an initiative to expedite the COVID vaccines, but criticized the vaccine mandates imposed by Biden. And so yeah,
she does seem like an upgrade, like as in like between these two individuals, like
she's obviously more qualified. She's way more qualified than the other person. So I mean it's a win, I think, I guess.
But like when I was reading the article, like literally as I was reading that sentence of they went to Ross, like I literally started squinting my eyes like as soon as I read that of like ooh, I just had that visceral reaction, but that's colored by my experience.
I think something else I was just thinking of, because of what you guys said about like Casey being an MD, right, but then not like being licensed and then actually practicing medicine. It's something that like again this goes to our respect for titles, and like how we like raise certain people to some sort of legendary status of intelligence and competence that it maybe isn't deserved, right? Like how many people, all right, well this is probably actually not, this is less useful for this particular crowd, the two people I'm talking to here, but like how many people have like gone to college, right, gotten a degree, and then gone on to do something that's completely outside their degree, right? Like they don't use it, right? For those individuals, and they might be within the audience, right? For those individuals, how far are you from college? Right? Are you a decade out? Are you maybe more? Right? Okay. If like you had that degree, like right now, are you capable of teaching a class? Like, are you knowledgeable enough to like pass this on, this thing that you haven't used and you haven't practiced on forever? Are you knowledgeable enough to actually do that? But for like a person who's gotten MD, right? People kind of like attach that to them forever, right? Like,
True.
like oh, you are always an expert on the human body, and I should be like listen to you as if you have a grasp on the state of the industry right this second, right? Like
yeah, I mean they do get it. They have to have like they have to have continuing education credits in order to fulfill their.
But I'm talking about for Casey. Like for like Casey, she never even practiced, right? Like so like she can carry on that like
that's
grift, right? Like how I'm an MD, right? Like she could say, hey,
I don't think she's ever prescribed like a medication ever.
Yeah, she doesn't have to prescribe medication.
No, I'm just saying I don't think as part of her experience, I don't think she's ever prescribed any medication ever.
Yeah. So like she what she can do is say, well, I am an MD, and as an MD, I can tell you that the supplement linked in the bio, right, is going to I don't know, get like cure your lack of sex drive or whatever the hell, right? Like whatever it is that will convince you to separate yourself from your money, right? As an MD, I can tell you that this is the case. Like, and that's just forever. That's a forever thing she has as part of her grift.
Yeah, no. And also just as I guess a reminder, just because someone has an MD doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good person. Again, this all goes to like how we seem to place a whole bunch of, if you have these letters or these credentials next to your name, we tend to like just automatically put these good qualities on you. But as a reminder, also another Stanford trained medical doctor, Peter Attia, but also heavily mentioned in the Epstein files.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's the first time I saw his short like came up on my feed. I like direct messaged him. I never do, but I automatically gets filtered anyway. And I was just like, oh, that Epstein guy. There you are. It's so weird, man. I think it's so crazy.
And definitely like
He's so involved too. Like it's
yeah.
just,
And definitely his whatever emails or correspondence, like I would say did not reflect really good character on his part. But I might just be too judgmental. But like he's a well-known health influencer, and he's taken pretty seriously.
I have a question in chat. But wait, can PhDs be referred to as doctors, but doctors of nursing practice can't? That is correct, and that actually just got done.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that actually got done. It's like an insurance issue because they need to know like who is the physician has. It's like a liability thing basically. The physician has, that's where all the cushion is for liability if something goes wrong. So they have to have like a universal name in that practice and that setting. So they basically, the AMA like fought, and that actually went to the California Supreme Court this year, and they ruled that DMPs cannot be called doctors.
Wow, that's really interesting.
But chiropractors can. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, because they're not like into spoke. This is the professional degree again, like it's out, and the license and everything that we're putting into that as a society. This is like what we're packaging.
I mean, I get what they're I get the argument here, right? Like in terms of like a confusion within the medical field, right? Like when people say the word doctor, at least when they're walking to a hospital, obviously, yes, true. It's true that like you could be a doctor of mathematics, right? But like if I'm in the university math department, right? Like, and I'm saying the word doctor, I think there's an understanding that like I don't mean you're going to treat me, right? So most people have that.
You'd be surprised how many people just assume doctor, no matter what, means MD.
Well, fair enough. That's fair. Okay, fair. But certainly within the context of a medical establishment, when you say the words, you're a doctor to me, I assume, MD. I assume, physician or whatever, right? But then you're not a physician, you're a nurse. Not that that necessarily matters, because those nurses can be just as capable. I'm sure that came up within the court cases, how capable or more capable, because like they have more interface with patients than doctors do. So they can be just as capable, but like I get like within this step, I mean one thing. We can't like mix these things. Like we'll basically have to just come up with two different terms, right? Just so we know who we're talking about here. So I get it.
It's a huge point of like MDs like fighting for like not to be called like a healthcare provider. They're like specifically trying to be called like doctors in order to avoid this like confusion in regards to like because basically DNPs, and you can actually have a master's in nurse practitioner too, but there's and then physician assistants is another thing. So it's like all of these people, like a DNP and a PA, are going to be working independently. They'll like make decisions that have life or death consequences. And the MDs like they're like umbrellaing the kind of the whole thing, malpractice insurance basically. And but yeah, it's an interesting aspect of like what's happening, and I think like as more people go into being seen by like NPs and PAs, you're going to see a lot more
Well,
problems.
I think part of the problem is now this we can blame on physicians. I think my understanding is we can. If I'm wrong, then someone please correct me because I could be talking about my ass, and if so, I do apologize.
Mhm.
But like, there's the whole fight against nurses, like prescribing medicines or
Yeah.
like doing like officially doing the things like a physician will do, right?
Mhm.
My understanding is the reason on the other one of the reasons that people are against this is like physicians, they don't want to dilute their power, right?
Don't
Like,
encroach on my territory.
yeah. First of all, if you just have more workers who can do a thing, right, that devalues the work of like the ones who can already do it, right? Like if there's only 100 doctors, right, and there's 100 nurses, and now those 100 nurses can do a lot of the same things that the doctors can do, right? Well, then the doctors have lost their power in the marketplace. Now there's 200 workers who can do it, right? Um, and so, like my understanding, like is like the American Physician Association, whatever association, maybe the AMA, I don't know,
Mhm.
whatever association is representing them is like been fighting this. Again, if I'm talking out my ass, I do apologize, and just regard everything I'm saying here. But I think that's at least part of the fight here. That not that these women, well, all the times mostly women, but like people in general, because men can be nurses. Not that these people aren't qualified to do the job; they absolutely are. But there's a bit of a battle um, as to who has that ability.
Yeah. I mean, I think people. It's going to be interesting, man. I think you're going to have. I mean, basically, like NPs are, and I know this track the best just because my wife has gone through it. But like the good side is like basically a nurse practitioner is a nurse, a bedside nurse that's been in the field for a decade, can't go back to medical school, but they're good nurses, so they should be able to kind of like operate alone, like make decisions, and basically get advice from an MD on this stuff. Uh, but the bad side of it is like someone that goes through uh, gets the RN and then immediately goes to a DMP program without any kind of experience in that field, and that's where like MDs kind of like take real care to say that like these people are not as trained as us, considering we have to go through, you know, all like medical schools is longer, and then on top of that, um, you have to basically station in a you have to go around hopping like substations or sub acuities and different places in the hospital learning, and then on top of that, then you pick your place, and then you have to stay there and you kind of practice in that space, um, which is kind of where the nurses were, right? They stay in one place and they kind of learn and accrue that knowledge over time. So yeah, it's I think, but at the end of the day, MDs are making the argument, well, we're bringing in like more knowledge around like how this whole body works, and there's could be the complications and stuff, and that would help us. I think what the interesting caveat is like as like AI gets better, like for diagnosing things, I think that we're going to have that kind of built in to our healthcare systems. Like I think we're going to see a lot
But
of
you don't
that
have to get
kind of.
to AI. You don't have to get to AI yet. You don't have to even
Mhm.
look at AI yet, because like the thing I thought you were gonna go with when you were moving in that direction is just that like they have like diagnostic tools available to them now, right? That aren't AI,
Mhm.
like not AI, that assist with exactly this problem, and that like nurses would could be just as capable of using and interpreting this knowledge, right? Like they already like help outsource like the cognitive load of trying to figure out like what the hell's wrong with this patient,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
um and so and again, I'm not saying that physicians don't maybe have some sort of unique skills set, right?
Mhm.
But there are certain, and it's not. I'm not saying that these two positions are necessarily equal, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are certain roles that are just like held for physicians that nurses can't do. They can offload some of these roles, right? The hospital can just be more efficient. Patient care can be more efficient. There's sometimes like you just have to wait for the doctor to come and do the thing. The doctor comes in 2 seconds and does the thing, right? And
Mhm.
then back to the nurse who does the entire rest of the visit. Like everything comes to a screeching halt until a doctor shows up, specifically signs off on the thing that we all know that everyone agrees has to be done, right?
Yeah, but
And that's
that is what
that's
it
the
is.
yeah.
So a lot of times that's done by like someone that is a new MD in that area and they need to practice. So like they need to practice that and they need to get that skill set. Like a lot of times that person has been taught by an RN or an NP like how to do that thing. So a lot of times like they're not necessarily people are doing that just to do that. But I think it's interesting. I don't know the answer to this, but maybe because like surgeons obviously aren't like nurses, like you're gonna have
Mm.
the doctor like doing that. But I'm curious, like, but it seems like the actual patient care part, like all that kind of stuff, like outside of surgery and that kind of stuff, like it seems to be like nurses or a DMP could pretty much do everything. I don't know. I'm actually really curious about. I'm gonna ask my wife about
Yeah.
that because it's like
Yeah.
it seems like she could do like literally everything that a medical doctor could.
Yeah, I would like to have it because this is not an area that I've studied. So that's why I'm saying I'm
Mhm.
afraid. I'm hopefully not talking out my ass. If I am, someone knows better than me, then I do apologize. I don't mean to spread
Yeah.
information if I am. Um, but this is my understanding of the state of this debate. I would love if we could have actual experts come in and like
Mhm.
tell us like what that situation is. Because I'm sure we could, and you might actually have access to those, Dr. Greg. Like one your wife, but also you had like was it doctor friends, like the one
Mhm.
lady who came in
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah. We
Maybe
have.
they could have an intelligent conversation about this again because I don't want to be spreading misinformation if I'm misunderstanding anything. But yeah,
I think at the end of the day, man, like you know, there, it's going to be how medical care is going to be disrupted about through AI in the future is anyone's guess, man. And I think that anyone not touching a patient or not like moving a patient or interacting with it, like it's probably going to go the way of a lot of these high intelligence AIs in the next 10, 20 years. So I think that's just the kind of reality that I see that's going to happen in my work in biology. Like if you're not touching liquids and you're not moving things around, even then you
Whoa! Do
probably
not touch your liquids unless you want some
yeah.
contamination.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Well, but like even still, like, well, do you want a robot to do it or are you going to do it? So like, but then there's like these all remote lab concepts too. So who honestly who knows what the future is going to be like in a lot of these spaces, but touching patients is probably something that's never going to go away, and the actual person that's doing the care, I mean, I'd be really surprised if it was robots
but
coming soon.
just to clarify something, when you mentioned like earlier of like how, let's say, a nurse who's been a nurse for 10 years, they can't
Mhm,
go back to they can't go back to medical school. Are you
mhm.
saying that like as in like just like the logistics of it, or like
Yeah.
that would take too much time, or like there's some sort of actual like bureaucratic barrier that prevents them?
Yeah, dude. I mean, like mid 30-year
Sure.
old mom, like you're not going to go back to medical school.
Yeah,
There's
no,
no,
that I
I mean,
understand.
you
But
theoretically could, but it's like that's it's just you're not going to
yeah, I
be
understand.
your
There,
MCAT's done. You're not going to get. So it's just
but maybe there should be like I don't know some like alternative or accelerated track for these types of
yeah, yeah.
individuals,
I
right?
feel bad. Like it's interesting. Like talking to my wife, she's like, yeah, I guess I would have like to have gone by in my MD, obviously would have been like if I could have, I would have, but I didn't know I loved this as much as I do now. So it's like, dang, well, now that she knows she's already invested all this time, but now she's a damn good nurse. So it's like, well, give her all the power that you can,
And she probably
Um,
could get up to speed like really quickly. as in almost certainly doesn't need to go through the entirety of medical school, but like, yeah, there should be some, well, ideally, there should be some sort of track. But I mean, there's sort of maybe a similar conversation. Well, I'd be curious, sort of in your experience, Greg, of like, like obviously let's say there's an implicit expectation of PhDs in the life sciences being a certain level, but like, I have no problem saying like there's some lab techs that I know that have been lab techs for like 10 years that I would trust more than some PhDs to carry out an experiment or even to
Absolutely.
design an experiment.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, even going like from one specialty to another, like, because I had to do like work, with nanotechnology. I that was like a whole new realm, like going into there. It's just there's like there's the details. That's the thing. That's the really what separates expertise versus the layman is these little details, and you have someone shadow you, and you're just like saying all these details, these small little things, but it's just hundreds and thousands of different iterations that you learn this over, over it being your job for 20 years, 40 you're working 40 hours a week on this one thing, and you just kind of like accumulate these little different things. So yeah, it is really weird, but um and I think that that's what kind of happens with the specialties like in medicine or science and stuff like that, and that's why they are so narrow. That's why people like dedicate their lives to like scientific study with like one thing, like one pathway, and um it's interesting. I mean, maybe that's how it used to be 20, 30 years ago, but now in the future maybe we can do more with more tools, but yeah, we'll see.
I'm looking into it.
Yeah.
Just doing some research, and it does seem like nurse practitioners can do at least a lot of the same things. Um, and um, like according to the American Nurses Association, notes that NPs can perform 60 to 80% of primary and preventative care traditionally handled by doctors.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm wondering what parts are specifically are they told that they can't perform?
Yeah, is it like
Um,
someone's saying in my comments it's state dependent? Interesting.
yeah, that's what I'm seeing. That it's state dependent here.
Hmm.
That state specific restriction duties in 23 states and NPs have reduced or restricted practice, meaning they must still have physicians sign off on certain treatment plans, medications, and diagnostic orders.
Hmm.
So it does seem to be state specific. Um, yeah, I don't
Yeah, it
know.
does seem like and yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting situation to me because like uh, if you're out, if you have doctors and nurses very often like working side by side in some circumstances, but like if you can train a nurse on a technique, like why wouldn't you, right?
Hmm.
But then it's like as in I don't know, it is a little bit like
Liability.
I understand it. Like we have to maybe make these separations for some practical purposes, but it's like if you if you can train the nurse to do it and they're competent, it's like yeah, why not? And then why
Yeah.
handcuff them for no reason, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
I
Yeah.
mean, just like we do in the lab. Like, do we gatekeep techniques that we teach to like, oh, you're not a PhD, so I can't teach you this.
Do it all.
Yeah,
Do it all.
yeah, yeah. I'm curious.
I
I would
understand it's
actually
I
love.
understand it's higher stakes in the medical field, life or death. But like
Yeah.
even then, like, but wouldn't you want more competent people around, anyways?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Give me feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, I'd actually like to hear from your wife. Because maybe there's a misunderstanding. Maybe it's not so bad after all. Um, but uh, my understanding is that at least in some places, yes, you are restricted. So I don't know. I hope I will. Yeah, I'd definitely love to hear that. And yeah, yeah,
I'll
I'll leave
talk
it
to her afterwards to see what would be interesting. But well, dude, thank you. Thank you guys. That was yeah. I'll have to ask what that is, but I I think at the end of the day, man, like really, like eh, what it is like like medical science versus this like quackery, this pseudoscience bullshit that like seeks to harm people, and I think like sometimes, especially my wife, like there's like toxic subreddits that are very like in group out group for a lot of this stuff, for MDs versus NPs versus PAs, and they like
Really?
they're like feuding. Yeah. And
I'm curious what they're feuding about, actually.
it's like,
Who has the bigger ego?
and it's like, dude, at the end of the day, if you're trying to just practice medicine, based on science, I think we're all on the same team. So whoever shakes out in this whole AI and wild world in
I
the
don't know if we
future.
are on the same team. I feel like they're all different groups with their independent motivations, right? Like um I mean, like I would want them to all be on this. That would be the goal. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
that would be like the utopian look at things. But like, people want to protect the value of their labor, and there's reason to do so. There's reason to gatekeep. Again, I'm curious what exactly the fights are about. And like what is actually being gatekept within their discussions. I would love to hear from your wife about that. But there's like, are we on the same team? Right? Like that would also have to mean like the hospital administrators are on the same team. Are they?
Yeah,
Well,
that's
hospital
a big,
administrators,
that's another problem. Yeah,
yeah,
about verticality in healthcare right now, where it's like
they'll
entire
they're
companies like owning the entire supply chain. It's crazy.
yeah, and like are like cutting back on nurses and care, like literally how much time you can spend. Some of this is like because of like private equity, like buying up hospitals, but
Exactly.
like literally doctors and nurses not being able to spend as much time with individuals because like they're putting us all in an assembly line and we got to go. And then like literally nurses striking because it's literally too dangerous for them to be working on the floor. It's dangerous for them and dangerous for the patients because like they can't adequately see to everyone, especially when people who might be within who have delicate care, might be in some sort of intensive care unit. Um, and so like you say they're on the same team, but are they? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, because if a nurse, let's say, well, pretty much what you brought up of like encroaching on the doctor's scope of practice, but like that's where like if a nurse can undercut a doctor, right? As in because like the hospital
Mhm.
can charge for doctor services, right? But if a nurse can do it, you could charge less. But I don't actually know for sure. But I assuming let's say in a for-profit hospital, I guess ideally you want doctors doing everything, right? Because you can charge the most for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I don't know.
Maybe that's one of the further drawbacks of having for-profit hospitals.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, yeah. For-profit hospitals is just, yeah. It's awful. Like,
Like you would want the doctors doing all the paperwork and have all of them be administrators, right? Because then you can charge the super premium on that.
all right, well, guys, sorry, I'm like running. I'm on my empty. I'm recovering from being a little sick the last couple of days. So,
Drinking too much raw milk.
I know, right? I know. I did go to the neighborhood happy hour, like it's at a cul-de-sac, and there's like 20 people and like 20 kids, and they're all like playing and riding bikes and stuff. So it was pretty cool. So got a little tired, but it was fun. It was fun.
Always fun. But yeah, sorry to hear that you're not feeling your best, but I hope you get a good night's sleep and recover quickly.
Thank you, appreciate it. But yeah, do you guys want to do your sign-offs?
Yeah, go for it,
Thanks for
Prime, if you want
having
to
me.
start.
Yeah, Prime Kai, PrimeCays. That's where you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Kick. Yeah, do debates. It's a lot of fun. So come through, and it was nice discussing these issues with these individuals. A lot of fun, and we're coming at these things from different backgrounds. So shout out to them, and thanks for everyone for being so kind as to have me and to listen.
And you can find me on Twitch, CoreyCamedy4, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Substack. It's Corey Campbell. And yeah, always a pleasure, gentlemen. Looking forward to next week.
All right. Yeah. See you guys. Have a good one. Appreciate
Take care. Be well. Always a pleasure.
Bye.
All right. Thank you, anyone, for passing by. Thank you, Balkle, for passing by. And anybody else that I forgot, I apologize, but I don't think I forgot anybody. But yeah, as usual, that's it for this week. Should be back next week for another Anti-MAHA panel. And so until then, take care and be well.